We have some more breaking news as we continue to learn new information about the blast at a West Carrollton plant that shook the neighborhood and injured 2 people.
Large flames spread across the night sky when Veolia Environmental Services on Infirmary Road exploded around 1 o'clock this morning.
Shelby Costo is live at that scene. She begins our live team coverage with what's happening right now. Shelby?
Mark, Michelle, Infirmary Road is back open at this hour. Now, police are allowing people who work near the plant to get in there, check out their businesses for any damage. But much of the cleanup and the investigation into how and why this happened is in its early stages. Now, we want you to take a look at some video from last night, early this morning, I should say. You could see the huge fireball in the sky for miles. Plumes of smoke filled the skies above the plant. Here's a look at some aerial video from a chopper so you can get a grasp how big and destructive this explosion and fire really was. West Carrollton Fire Chief Jack Keister said the explosion had so much force it knocked small buildings on site off their foundations. The explosion happened a little before midnight last night. 6 employees were working at the site and were transferring solvents from one tank to another when they noticed a vapor leak. Somehow leaking fumes ignited and exploded. 2 plant workers were seriously injured and were taken to the hospital. One, we're told, has 1st and 2nd degree burns and the other a leg injury. Now, immediately after the explosion, 911 call centers were flooded with calls. People were terrified after they heard a loud boom.
I don't know where it's coming from. Is it safe to go out?
I don't know, ma'am. We just heard it and felt it ourselves, so we've got officers out looking to see what. We don't know. We don't know yet. We're looking.
I'm petrified.
So obviously a very scary night and day for many of the residents who live nearby. Now, just as a precautionary measure, some of these residents have been evacuated, but just for a short time. Michelle?
Okay, Shelby. Well, did the plant have any trouble in the past with the EPA or OSHA or the fire department?
Well, we're told no, they didn't have any problems. There were no complaints in the past, and the company just released a statement about an hour ago that said safety is their highest priority, and they are working with local authorities to investigate how this happened. We, of course, will keep you updated on the very latest. Reporting live in West Carrollton, Shelby Costo, 2 News on your side.
Okay, Shelby, thank you. Well, meanwhile, the force of that blast could be felt for miles. We've been hearing from viewers across the Miami Valley. Holly Samuels continues our live team coverage with neighbor reaction. Holly?
Well, Michelle, I'm standing about in front of where it happened. This tan building, if you can see behind me, is where fire crews say this fire started. We've been out here all afternoon talking to neighbors in this area, and they've been sharing some pretty amazing stories. In fact, one man told me this afternoon he heard someone actually heard the blast all the way in New Lebanon.
Blew out all the front windows, 2 of the basement windows. Has a crack in the foundation of the basement. Drop ceiling in the living room fell in.
Steve Brewer drove in this morning from Miamisburg to help his grandparents clean up after a massive explosion less than a mile from their house. Brewer says he could feel the jolt from his house, but what he found in West Carrollton was still surprising.
My buddy called too and said that my mom talked to him and said all the windows were blown out. I didn't expect to get here and see this.
Just up the road, Brewer's uncle is still talking about the explosion that threw him from his bed.
I was laying there, then felt like the whole house was falling down, knocked me completely out of bed. By the time I got back up, opened the little curtain because I sleep right up in the room, and see nothing but a big giant fireball, sparks flying in the air, actual debris falling back down to the ground and everything.
The force of the shock wave cracked the foundation of his house and blew out the front window.
Yeah, it's like a giant earthquake.
Now, some residents in this area tell me there were some rumors that they weren't allowed back in their home until someone had inspected the home. I just talked with the city of West Carrollton about an hour or so ago. They tell me that that is not true, although they do have city inspectors in this area going door to door, just letting them know that the inspectors will be there if the neighbors or the residents in this area need to rebuild or repair their homes. Reporting live in West Carrollton, Holly Samuels, 2 News on your side.
Okay, Holly, thank you. Staying with this plant processes dangerous solvents, and that has officials still keeping a very close eye on both the air and water tonight. Meteorologist Eric Zarnitz continues team coverage with more on exactly what they are looking for. Eric.
Mark, the Environmental Protection Agency is still on site tonight, and even though the fire is just about completely burned out, we still have some concerns, especially when it comes to water. After an explosion at any plant, one of the main concerns is containing the fire, but a close second is the environmental risk posed to those close by.
There were two concerns initially. One would be the firefighting runoff to the creek. The second one, of course, is the air release.
Jim Crawford is the on-scene coordinator for the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency and came along early this morning with a slew of computers, monitors, and the command center.
The first thing we did was to get them in the downwind direction so that we could get their equipment into the plume area, all at ground level, which is where the population is.
These remote sensors constantly monitor the air, looking for dangerous chemicals like ammonia, chlorine, and some other elements that you might find in a fire. All of that information is transferred back to the command post. That data is then combined with wind forecasting computer models, much like what we use in the Weather Center to determine if and where there needs to be an evacuation.
But there was an obvious smoke plume, very black, very dark. So what we did was model that to see where it was going. We had an unusual northeast wind which drove it away from West Carrollton and more into the rural area.
So far, Jim tells me that they haven't come back with any significant data from those air monitors, and that the creek that runs from the site to the Great Miami River has been cut off until those water sample tests come back. Reporting live in West Carrollton, Eric Zarnitz, 2 News, on your side.